go ahead and start. Daniel, go ahead and push the next slide there for us. And we're calling this an anatomy of a public works director. And we're going to be talking this morning with Bob Perry. He's graciously, consented to take some questions from us. I'll kind of just do a interview, and then I'll if some of you have questions that I miss or are searing, we'll open it up, and let each of you have a shot at it. If you could keep yourself muted until such time so that we don't get the background noise going and whatnot. So how are you this morning, Mr. Perry?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. If I was doing any better, there'd have to be two of me, and the world couldn't handle that. So.
Oh, yeah, that's what I like to hear. Well, so Bob, tell us a little bit about, just to start out, your background and how you worked and how you worked your way up into that position as the public works director, and how many years, and a little bit about your background, if you could. Of course, and everybody knows that from our last meeting that Bob's our go-to guy when we have a meeting and we need some technical help and stuff like that.
I've been involved in engineering one way or another most of my adult life. When I first got out of high school, I went to work for the Forest Service, working as a surveyor. In the summertime, we were putting in, roads, lining out roads for lumber work and for recreational stuff on that. And then I worked for Wyoming Department of Transportation. It's called the Wyoming Highway Department at that time, and worked for them in the summertime while I was going to college. Also working on doing testing, soil testing, asphalt testing, surveying, all kinds of different kinds of things for them. So, I've been working in this kind of stuff. Even when I went into the military, I was drafted into the military, and they asked me at that, I had filled out a form, and they said, if you could do anything you wanted to do in the military, what would you want to do? And I'd been doing a lot of surveying, so I said I wanted to be a surveyor. And they said, if you could go any place in the world you want to go besides the United States, where would you want to go? And I thought, and this is during the Vietnam era, and I thought, well, Vietnam is down here and Germany's up here, so I said Germany, on the globe. And so I ended up as being a target acquisition surveyor for the artillery in Germany. So I've never bought a lottery ticket since then. I figured that used it up pretty much. So I've been involved, in engineering in one way or another. It seems like either in field work or office work and different things. I went back to school a couple different times, and ran out of money, ran out of different things. My wife got sick, and we moved back to Montana to be near her family for a while. And so there was just a lot of, life gets in the way of, what you want to do sometimes. And so finally went back to school, got my engineering degree, and then went to work for an engineering firm, and then worked for them basically as a draftsman. You're an engineer, but without your license, you're just a higher paid drafter. And so I worked for an engineering firm and took my PE exam and passed that, and then went to work as an engineer for a potash firm down in Carlsbad, and so over the years, but I've been working in engineering, either field work or office work, most all my life, and then got my degree and got my license. And then, of course, when you get your license, that guarantees you're going to be in the office a lot. And so went to work for Archuleta County. I was running my own engineering firm, a little small engineering firm for a while, and then they were looking for a county engineer in Archuleta County, and I actually got in touch with them to see if I could contract with them, but they were wanting somebody full time there, and so got visiting with them, and then decided that would be a good opportunity. My wife and I commented many times, we've gone camping up in the mountains, and I thought, boy, it'd be so neat to be an engineer with the Forest Service and work in one of these high mountain communities and take care of their roads and bridges and stuff for them, and be able to live there and do that. And that would be the really neat thing to do. And so anyway, this was an opportunity for me to live in a high alpine community, take care of their roads and bridges, and work there. And it was every bit as good as I thought it would be. I think the most enjoyable part of my career, and probably the best part of my career, was my public service. Started out as a county engineer, working with Archuleta County. Our public works director started about the same time I did, and then she had to leave. Her husband couldn't take the altitude; he was getting real sick, and so they moved back to Florida, where they come from, and then I submitted a proposal to for being the public works director, and evidently they liked that proposal, and so I ended up as a county engineer and public works director for Archuleta County on that, and so it's been a very interesting career over the years. I've done a lot of different kinds of stuff, but mostly involved in civil engineering. When I first started school at the University of Wyoming, I started as an architectural engineer. Decided I didn't want to spend my time designing HVAC systems. I wanted to be more involved in construction and stuff. So ended up switching over to civil engineering, which I've never regretted. So that kind of explains a lot of things on that. And so if there's anything else you need to ask her, you think that's kind of it.
Well, okay, I think that gives us a good idea of how Bob Perry came to be. So from all the BDRs that are present here, and we're going out, some of us have started, some of us are about to start, going and trying to contact public works directors or mayors, or whoever wants to listen, I guess. What can you tell us how you came to know about Lithtec, and sort of how many meetings did it take before you were, yeah, let's test this soil? And what was it that told you it's worth taking a chance? Because as we know, generally speaking, people that work for city, county governments, state governments and stuff, it's the cover your own butt thing. You're not going to get too far out there on something that you don't know works. So if you could just take us through the process so that the BDRs will have an idea when they encounter a public works director, what kind of time frame did it take to first hearing about it, how many meetings you took with the BDR, when did it click for you and say, yeah, we should try this?
Well, working as a county engineer at the time, as you probably know, if you don't, you should know, counties, Archuleta County, not a lot different than any other county. We have way more road than we have money to maintain and take care of. And so I'm the county engineer looking for solutions. And basically, you only have three choices. You can just accept the status quo and just take care of what little bit you can take care of, and let everything else fall apart. Okay, which was not acceptable to me. And or you can spend a lot of time working with the county commissioners and lobbying them to get more money. But we were running on about 33% of what we needed to do the job right. Okay. And there was no way that the county commissioners could come up with the other 66%. We were getting about $2 million a year. We needed about $6 million, and for capital projects. And we just it just wasn't there. I mean, I could spend all my time beating the county commissioners every time I saw them and lobbying for more and more money, and it just wasn't there. I mean, their entire budget wasn't much more than that. So the situation is that the other option you have is to try to find a different way to do things, a better way to go about doing things. There's a lot of different ways to build roads. I mean, and there's been a lot of them tried over the years. People try to take this shortcut and that shortcut, and if you're only going to be there for a couple of years or something, like, you can get by. You can do some really bad shortcuts, and if you're going to be there a couple of years, you won't be around when everything falls apart. It'll look nice. You'll look good to everybody. Oh man, we got this. We went out and painted this road with Sherwin-Williams black paint, and it looked really good the first years. So you can do a lot of different things. There's a lot of them out there, and of course I've been around for a while, and I've learned that a lot of these things they talk a good story to start with, and then you find out that it doesn't work. So anyway, I was looking at things and ran across the KSL report that they had about the San Juan County there in Monticello, Utah, in that area, and watched that, read that, and so I thought, that's not that far away. So went over to, made arrangements, talked with their director of public works, and made arrangements to go over and look at the roads they did, the landfill road and the Dude Ranch road, and actually got a chance to see what they had done earlier in the year, and found out what it was and what they had done, and took a look at it. And so I got a little bit of a firsthand view of it. And then the next year, and of course, during that time, I continued to read about things and listen to some of the online stuff that Bob Sherwin does every other week or a couple of times a month anyway, and watched some of those, took a look at some of the data that he had, and then looked to find out, okay, is this correct or not correct? And I think in the meantime, I ended up visiting with Jim Gray someplace in there, and then went over and the next year to look at the roads in San Juan County and see what they were like a year later. You can make almost anything look good, for the first 2 weeks or first few months on things. It's after it's been around for a little bit that you get a chance to see, is it really holding up like it should? So any rate, we went over. I took an engineer with me and we went over and looked at that, and then came back and decided that was something that we wanted to do. I was getting ready to be gone for, I had a vacation time, and we had something set up. The commissioners, I wanted the commissioners to see it, and I wanted to talk to them about it. I'd already visited some with them and talked to them about it, but I wanted them to have a chance to hear what Bob had to say. I'm sure well, anyway, I was gone when they got it all set up. So Bob and I think it was Ken went over and actually visited with our county commissioners and did a really nice presentation with them. So when I got back, I didn't have to sell anything. All we did is budget it for the next year and get it all lined up so that we would be ready to do that. And then we had an opportunity come up to I can't remember, one other project kind of fell through, and so we had an opportunity to do a road, and it was a road that had been kind of a pain in everybody's side on this. It was an old chip seal road that the owners, not the owners, the neighbors, the community in that neighborhood, did not want to give up the little bit of pavement they had, which was pavement name only. It was an old chip seal road, and we couldn't take care of the chip seal. There's just no way to maintain it. So anyway, I talked to the commissioner and said, could we do a test project on this lithified? I said, we could do this road here these people have been very vocal, very demanding, wanting us to repave that road. They said, when we moved into this community, it was a paved road. Well, it was a pavement name only. It was a chip seal road. So anyway, I talked to them and said, look, we're not going to be doing this road because we didn't have enough money to do it at $1 million a mile. And I said, could we take this little bit of funding that we have, and could we do that road? And I said it would be something that would be really useful. It would be a good test, and we could see how well it holds up and whether it works or not. And so we did. They said, well, yeah, this is a win-win, win-win-win for everybody. The people in the neighborhood got a good hard surfaced road that held up well, and we got them off of our backs, literally speaking, and we got a good test on this road. So we set it up because we didn't have a lot of money to do it. We have pretty limited funds. So we set it up where our own crews, the county crews, actually did most of the grading work and everything. And we set it up to where we had a mile. So not only did we do that road, we did 2 other roads that were in similar situations. So it was a way for me to do this. And because we set it up as a test, then we had a little bit of a way that if everything fell apart, that it wasn't going to be a total disaster for the county road bridge department. And so we did, and we got it put in, and then we watched it for a couple of years. So that's kind of how that came about. But the idea is that really, the person you're going to be talking to, the county engineer, the road bridge supervisor, superintendent, the public works director, county engineer, whatever, they've really got very limited choices. They don't have a lot of choices. They can try to continue doing things cheaply and having things not last very long and fall apart. I think the one deal that I saw with San Miguel or San Juan County, they actually showed the cost of gravel roads versus the cost of of a lithified road. And I said, well, my numbers don't match that at all. And so I got my executive assistant to, look up all the work orders and look up all the data and check some of the roads that we had that we would be considering doing, and see how much money we were actually spending on them, when you take into account everything we did, besides not including the snow removal. And come to find out that, those numbers were actually, pretty accurate. And that's another thing that as I've been going through all of this, one of the things that I found was that in my relationship with Jim and Ken and Bob, in visiting with them and in talking with them, and all of the things, I've found them to be people of very good integrity. And, there's so many people you work with. Sometimes when you work as a public works director, you have people come by and they want to sell you anything and everything, and they will tell you anything they think that they need to tell you to get a sale. And Bob and Ken and Jim were not that way. They were more interested in answering my questions and getting me information, and making sure that I had all of the things that I needed to make my decision, rather than blowing a bunch of smoke. And so that level of integrity at the top end of the lithified technology company was impressive to me. I really actually found that refreshing. And so the more I learned, the more I studied about it, and the things I looked up and the things I found to say, okay, is this really what it is? Is this really what they're saying it is? Is this, then at that particular point, I was able to say, well, we can do this as a test. And so we did. And then we were lined up last year to do another couple of miles of lithified. And then of course, COVID hit, and Pagosa Springs being, and Archuleta County being a tourist destination community, they decided to cut back on all of their road work for that year, to make sure if we really had a really bad impact money-wise, that we would have adequate money to run the county. And so they cut all my projects, my capital projects. And then this year, they found out it wasn't as bad as they thought it was going to be. And so then this year we had a whole bunch of work scheduled. And then because I was getting ready to retire and they knew it, then they quit listening to what I was saying. And they had an engineer that went and talked to them and said, we shouldn't be investing a whole bunch of money in an untried product, and said, hey, the product's actually tried, but they weren't listening to me. And so finally, that's when I decided I just, if I wasn't going to be staying around to do the lithified projects, then I would go ahead and retire in May instead of wait until August on that. So that's the situation on that. And the very last meeting I had as the public works director was meeting with my replacement, and meeting with this engineer, and he was trying to justify the additional spending that was going to take to do things the way they wanted to do it, and double his fees, basically, to do it that way because he was getting 10% of the construction cost. And so that would essentially, and that's what he was concerned about, is that Lithtec was cutting the costs of doing these projects. And so even though we had them working with us to do the engineering, which is not necessarily necessary because of the way Lithtec supports their product. But we had that doing that, but his fees were getting cut. And so he was trying to protect his business and went and visited with the commissioners and got them convinced that Lithtec was not what they wanted to do right away, although they do have one project that they're bidding both ways. And so it gives you an idea that there's always politics involved, and there is a huge status quo bias involved in what you're doing. When you start using a new system, then the local contractors who are not familiar with the Lithtec system, then they put pressure on the commissioners by saying, well, hey, we can't do this. We're going to have to bring somebody in from outside. We don't know how to do this. And they're getting these projects away from us, and we're going to go out of business if we don't do something. And whatever stories, the engineers see their income going down, so they jump on the bandwagon and say, well, this is not all that it's cracked up to be, or whatever. And so you have those hurdles that you need to work with. And so in many ways, you're better off to start out a little bit slow rather than try to get too many projects in 1 year, because you want to try to give some of those local contractors an opportunity to get familiar with the process. The engineers eventually are going to need to compete, and they're going to need to know what they need to do, what they need to recommend in order to get projects at a lower cost. They can't continue to use the 1935 process of reconstructing roads and that big, huge status quo bias that's built in on that, so that nobody ever has to take any risk. So nobody ever has to take any chance. We'll just use the 1935 method, and nobody's ever been fired for using the 1935 method, at least not in recent years. And so they do that, and so it is a huge hurdle to overcome. The more projects that we get built, and the more history that we get under our belts, then the Lithtec process is going to be self-selling just simply by success. And the way that Lithtec goes about doing things, by making sure that they do all the work in the lab before they build a road, is going to guarantee success down the road. Now, it will slow down the initial sales process to a certain degree, but in the long run, you're going to have way more success than you will by trying to hurry too fast, get some failures or some not so good projects out there, and then having to deal with that. So I just think that what I was seeing was that I was finding a way to do our work at about a third the cost of what it was costing us for do a full depth lithification versus a full depth reclamation, was about a third the cost, at least in Archuleta County. Now, each county is going to be a little bit different. The soils are going to be a little bit different for each particular road, and those kinds of things. So there's not a set, I want to say there's not a set amount of money, but ours turned out to be about a third. And when you compare apples and apples on that, and so all of a sudden, here I am as county engineer and public works director, and I have a way to take care of the roads in Archuleta County with the limited budget that we had. I had a way to do the maintenance that we needed to do within the budget that we had, and to take care of all of our hard surface roads and to redo a lot of those. And that frustrated the county commissioners to a certain degree. They wanted to do some roads that didn't meet any other standards. They did not have the traffic necessary to meet our hard surfacing standards that we had. They did not do, but they politically wanted to do these roads, and so they were doing it for not very good reasons, was at least the way I looked at it. And so they were wanting to do it for political reasons, and you run into some of that. The original county commissioners that we had when I first got there, and the first few years I was there, they were really sharp. They wanted to do it right. We the last two elections, we ended up getting a couple of commissioners that were more concerned about the politics than they were what was best for the county. They had friends or people or whatever constituents that provided money for them or whatever. I'm not sure what all the politics. I'm not a politician. Never wanted to be, and thank goodness I never became one. On that, they wanted to do certain roads because they were political, and that's part of that. Say what you want to say, but county agencies are political in nature. They are political creatures, and so occasionally you'll get a good series of commissioners in that will allow you to move ahead, and once you get a little bit of an in and you get a couple of roads built, then it makes it a lot easier to continue doing that. But sometimes it's a bridge too far, at least to start with. But you never give up. You have the opportunity to make it work. Then you take advantage of that opportunity. Sorry, I've talked way too long. So.
No, not at all, Bob. I think we want everybody to have a realistic idea. So if I'm getting you right, it took you about a year of due diligence and visiting with Lithified and seeing roads and stuff before you were actually ready to make a decision. Did I get that right?
Absolutely. I mean, when you're a county engineer or a public works director, you've got a reputation, your own personal reputation, that you have to uphold and make sure that you don't go off on a tangent and recommend something that failed, because then your reputation at that particular point is shot, and you don't want to do that. So you want to make sure you do good due diligence in the products that you recommend, and so I did on this, and I could see the advantage, I could see the benefit, and I could see what it would do for the taxpayers of Archuleta County. We could get a lot better roads for the dollar that we were spending on that. And so I finally, after I looked at it, I said, if I'm doing my job to try to represent the Archuleta County taxpayers and try to get the best bang for the buck in what we are doing, we can do that. And I mean, I got to admit, I was a little bit looking at it because I, was not as sold on it when we started. And I had a guy ask me, he says, "Is this as good as this road is here?" And he was pointing to a newly paved road that we had done the first year I was there. And I said, "Well, you're asking the wrong question." And he kind of looked at me kind of funny. And I said, "You're asking me if it's as good as." I said, "I don't know." I said, "This product hasn't been around that long. I don't know if it's as good as. We haven't done one yet. We haven't. So is it as good as? I don't know." But ask yourself this. If we put this in and it lasts, we put it in for a quarter of the cost, which is what we were looking at the time. And we do it at a quarter of the cost, and it only lasts 5 years, then it's as good as. Okay. If we put it in and it lasts 20 years, then it's way better. But I don't know enough about it to know, so I can't say, well, this is as good as this. Okay. What I can say is that you're asking the wrong question. I'm saying that if it lasts like we think it's going to last, then it's not only as good as, it's better. On that, if it only lasts a fourth of what we think it is, then it's certainly as good as on that for the amount of money that we've spent. So that was my kind of rationale early on. I'm of the belief now that not only is it as good as, but it's considerably better on that. And one of the things that I really like about the way Bob is talking about it and stuff is that, you build a good base and then all you have to do is maintain the surface. And that's a whole lot cheaper maintenance than having to rebuild the base all the time. And that's really the advantage of Lithtec more than any other single thing, is the idea that you build that base, and then that base, if you do any kind of maintenance on it, then that base is there, and all you have to do is do your surface maintenance on that. And from the standpoint of a public works director who is having to answer to the county, to the public for their budget every year, then that's a lot easier to defend, I guess, than sitting around on your hands and doing the same thing year after year, not being able to build adequate enough roads to take care of things. Your roads are going to fall apart faster than anything you can build, and you can't maintain it. You can't uphold it or sustain it. And so it's, you have to look at what you have to be able to defend. And I looked at it, the more I learned about Lithtec, the easier it was for me to defend using Lithtec than to defend the status quo bias. And
Bob,
there was nothing else out there. So,
Bob, did you read the white paper from Los Alamos? Was that part of your due diligence, or was that not available at the time?
that was not available at the time.
Would, if that had been available as an engineer, how much weight and credence would have you given something like that?
Oh, that would have been wonderful on that. And I think it's still probably one of the strongest arguments we have because of the reputation of the Los Alamos lab. They're one of the highest thought of labs in the country, in the world probably, on that. And for them to come to the conclusions that they came with their tests that they did and the work that they did with lithified, that just makes it again a whole lot easier to justify the use of Lithtec versus trying to sit on your hands and do nothing. So I think that the argument that we need to make is just the fact that, you know, you have three choices. You either have to come up with a whole bunch more money, okay? And I don't know, unless they want to give counties the ability to print their money like the federal government does, that they're going to get a whole lot more money than they've ever had on that. And you don't get a lot more money. You sit on your hands and you just do the same thing year after year after year, and gradually fall farther and farther and farther behind on your maintenance. And you don't have to look very far. There's 54 counties, I think 54, 56 counties in Colorado, and I could go to almost any of them, and they would, I think Montrose County might be one of the exceptions. They just got a bill passed here a few years back that gave them more money. So they actually ended up getting a little bit more money for their road bridge thing. But the cost of maintaining that is going up way faster than the money they're going to get. So ultimately they're going to be in the same position down the road. But counties just have to come up with a different way of doing things. And if we can make the argument that Lithtec is the best solution out there, simply because they're going about it the right way. They're building the base so that all you have to do is maintain the surface, and surface maintenance is way less expensive than the base. And we're able to build the base at about 25 to 33% of the cost, depending on what you're seeing. And you can do that, then, you know, then you're on the winning side of what we're doing. And like I said, the more roads we build, the more success we have to go on. As time goes by and some of our roads get older, so that we can say, look, we've got these roads that are 10 or 15 years old, and this is what you're seeing with them. Then at that particular point, it's going to make it easier. But you know, at that point, we don't have to sell it; it sells itself. But in the meantime, we have to get the word out to county engineers and public works directors that there is an option. There is another option, and that they need to pay attention to it. And then, like Jim Gray did with me, Jim did a marvelous job with me in the fact that he didn't come and try to be on my door every week and you know, why aren't you using this? You know, bang bang. You know, he just helped me to learn more and more about Lithtec, and facilitated, you know, me learning from the questions that I asked and stuff. And I think that that's what we need to do, is be aware that we are giving them an option, and then letting them learn more and more about that option, to where they will be willing to do a test project in their county and show that it works in their county, and then have it be somewhat publicized. One, that it's a test, so there's not much risk reputation wise, and two, somewhat publicized so that the taxpayers of the county know that the public works director is actually looking at other ways of doing things to try to take care of those roads and to do it better. And I met with a lot of people in Archuleta County. I met with a lot of different groups in Archuleta County and talked to them about Lithtec, so that they would understand that we were actively looking at less expensive and better ways of doing things. So anyway.
So Bob, so we can try and keep this to an hour. And Daniel, please remind me that we're going to work on a PowerPoint that we can distribute to everybody based off of what I have some ideas about that after listening to Bob. Something where we could, you know, people can get in front of, you know, at maybe town board meeting, county commissioner meeting, something like that. I think we could do something real powerful based off of what Bob has just told us. So because we have a few more things to catch up on, but I'm going to open it up now. If you just raise your hand, and Daniel can unmute you at that time, and ask if you have any burning questions for Bob. Let's go ahead and take those right now.
I've got one.
Okay, we got two in the room right here, so we'll go ahead, Max.
So Bob, as far as chain of command in the county, it sounds like county commissioner is directly above you as a public works director. Is that right?
The county administrator was my boss, but the county administrator just basically facilitates what the county commissioners want. So he was a pretty straight through conduit for what the county commissioners wanted.
And below you would be county engineer and road and bridge supervisor.
Right.
So I think it's important to kind of understand the chain of command for everyone that's out there looking to, get involved in different counties and understand, maybe if the public works director isn't as accessible, or they have potentially an in with the county commissioner, or who was the other you said was directly over you?
Administrator.
County administrator. A lot of it depends on the nature of the county. Some commissioners, that first group of commissioners that I worked with, were very, how do I want to say, they were very conscious of the professional staff, and they listened to the professional staff very, very well within the realms of what they could do. There are certain groups of county commissioners that don't want to listen to professional staff. They want to do things politically rather than professionally, and you're going to run into those, and they're going to vary. Every other year when they have an election, the dynamics of the Board of County Commissioners change. So you can't be guaranteed that a particular group of county commissioners that really were sold on the Lithtec thing, that they're going to be there by the time you get ready to actually spend the money on that, and they actually controlled the expenditure of the money. But your relationship with the county commissioners, the public works director, and relationship with them, I had a very good relationship with them up until probably the last couple of months I was there, and they knew I was going to be retiring, and so they were less receptive, I guess, at that point, and we're looking at moving on and doing something different. So.
Okay, Todd, go ahead.
So to kind of follow up on that, Bob, is kind of the question I had was, and it will come to what we just talked about, is you mentioned that the civil engineer that was kind of following you, he was getting a percentage. Was that a contracted private sector civil engineer on the projects, and that's why he was getting the 10%?
Basically when we hired him to do work for us, it was basically hired it, and that's fairly standard in the industry, is 10%. And they did they did all the surveying up front. They did the paperwork to get it all set up and run, and then they also did the construction inspection on that, because we didn't have a very big engineering staff. I had one engineering tech, and so we didn't have an engineering staff. All of our engineering was done mostly by this one particular engineering firm, because they were the local engineering firm that
Right.
So that's a small town.
So that makes sense on the smaller counties that don't have the staff to engineer their projects. They are contracting that out, in which obviously if got my own business, the more money, the better. So that makes sense. On as far as I think for clarity for everybody is that your commissions, or here in Maricopa County, your commissioners would be the same as the Board of Supervisors, which is elected officials. Underneath them, like you guys had up there, you have your administrator, which would be the equivalent here of being a city manager. So you have your, as far as the city goes, you would have your mayor and your city councilmen, which are all elected, but really who runs the city is the city manager, who's in charge of the budget and whatnot, that works hand in hand with a public works director or streets and maintenance transportation directors or whatnot. Am I correct in getting that?
I think that seems to be that would be pretty correct, I would think.
So would it be easier in your scenario? Would it be better for a top-down approach where the city commissioners basically come to the public works directors and say, hey, we've been approached by this company, Lithtec Technologies. They've got this new way, and they say a new process of roads, and it can save us potentially a lot of money. Would you look into it for us and verify some things? Is that an easier way for this to go, to get them sold from the top down as opposed to from a bottom up?
Yes and no. Depends on how it comes. If a county commissioner came to me and said, hey, would you mind looking into this product? I've seen some stuff, it looks pretty good. Would you mind looking at that, spending some time, check it out, and come back and give me a report back on it? That might be good. If they came in and said, hey, Bob, we want to use this product, see what you can do to get this all set up to do that, I would probably, just because of my old gray head, would probably have resisted that. On that, I had several things that the county commissioners talked to me about and put to me. We had one of these deals for snow removal. It's a little side gate to supposedly keep from putting berms where the driveways were, and there's a gate that would and they asked me to look at it, and I did, and then I reported back that I did not want to use it. It was not a good system for what we do, and then finally they came back, and the director of the county commissioners, the chairman of the county commission, he came back and said, we're going to use this, so buy this gate and put it on. Well, so then we ended up getting it, putting it on, and it was expensive. It cost a lot of money to put it on. Supposedly it was basically you could just snap it onto a grader, and it wasn't. It took a tremendous amount of stuff. And then we used it, and it was a pain in the behind for everybody that was involved with it, and it didn't work. And then I'm getting good results. I'm getting good reports back. Well, from the people that didn't have to clean their driveway off, they gave a good report back. But the problem was that it couldn't be used on snow plows that were trucks, and it couldn't be used on some of the graders we had. Some of our graders that we had, and I don't think we're any different than a lot of counties, some of our graders were older than the people driving them. Okay, and so getting this retrofitted to work on those graders, they didn't have the controls, and then this, anyway, it was just a bad deal. But the director of the public works, or the director of the county commissioners, he basically told us to get it, and put a sour taste in our mouth about it. So even if it had probably been better than sliced bread, we wouldn't have liked it anyway. So
it looks like we have to be a little careful with that. I see Bob got his hand up and has joined us. So go right ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I've been with you from the beginning and just wanted to give a special thanks to Bob Perry. All of you can see from the time that he spent with us today, he's been extremely gracious with his time. He's tells you exactly as he sees it. There's and he's so conscientious with regard to the role that he's played with Archuleta County. They were very fortunate to have him as long as they did, and you can see the kind of due diligence that he's done in going forward on every product that he's chosen to use, and we're just really grateful to have you, Bob, spend this kind of time with us and to be a part of this team now that you're retired. We are very, very grateful for you, and just wanted a special thanks. And Mel, thanks for putting the format together. I think this has been really helpful for everybody that's been a part of it. So thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Bob. Looks like Brian, did you have your hand up?
I did have my hand up. I had a question that's kind of outside the box a little bit. I don't know if I'm one of the newer people associated with Lithtec, and maybe my question is easier answered than I'm making it out to be. But from a political standpoint, I think we're all in agreement that this is a solution to the road problem, and we're all believers. But what about everybody else? I'm not necessarily saying that everybody has to get fat off of road construction, but is that where a lot of our resistance is coming from, is potentially the large contractors who are building the roads as well? They don't have to come back and build the road in 4 years, you know?
Well, Brian, I don't even think we're at that point yet. We're such in such an embryonic stage that you know, people don't know about this. I mean, they just don't know, and that's really our job, is to get it in front of them. And I think, as Bob points out, we're going to encounter different issues as we come along, and we're going to get better and better at having the answers for those things.
Let me ask you this. If it looked tasty to a contractor, being they had the opportunity to make a reasonable amount of money on it, or whatever the case may be, would they be more apt in selling it to their county?
Absolutely, Brian. And we're moving in that direction. And because we recognize that, we've already had in northern New Mexico, we're already talking to like 4 of the bigger pavers there, and we're getting them. They really like the idea. So far, we haven't found reluctance, and a lot of them, they don't want to go back and do the maintenance work because the percentages aren't there for them. They don't make the kind of money going back and doing repairs that they do of putting in a new installation. They'll make like 35% compared to 12%. So the more of these people that we get as on our side, and I think as we bring together our certification program, where it actually gives them a leg up by being able to use Lithtec in order to build these roads, they'll advocate for it for us and on their own.
Right. So in that scenario, though, would it be the top-down approach? Is that the most effective way, or are we starting in the wrong place right now?
I think that, you know, just from doing a lot of political things throughout my life and having to get, you know, I think the motorcycle rally that Johnny and I produced for a number of years, we were dealing with so many different counties and cities because it was a regional thing. We did something that actually never happened, and that was we got a joint declaration from every single county, every single city in Southwest Colorado. It was unheard of. Nobody had even tried that. So I think we have the skills to make that happen, make them our friends, make them on our side. It's just going to take a little time. I see Walter has his hand up.
Thank you, Mel. I wanted to add um, some inflection to this. Being a person who works with contractors, being somebody who's had my eye and my heart into Lithtec for a long time, there's several things that as salespeople we have to be aware of, and that is that the control and the decision making, as Bob Perry has illustrated in his presentation today, shifts from time to time, where you have a county commissioner says, we want to do something. And then they have the authority to do so, even though if it really doesn't make sense. The bias that exists of doing things the old way in itself has a lot of control over decision making, as well as when a contractor is finally selected, when a job is put out for bid, many contractors come to the table, and a contractor is nothing more than a person bidding on the job, unless he has political insider connections, until he becomes a selected contractor. And then all confidence transfers to that one contractor, and what he says becomes very heavily weighted in his decisions about what happens on that job, because he gets into the job and finds conditions that maybe were not identified earlier. They call them change orders in the contractor industry. So you have to realize that you can go and you can try to find out which is the best limb to climb the tree to get to the apple. And you're going to find out that it changes. And the one thing that I can tell you from having so much experience in construction is that the engineers are the ones who put together the bid. So when they have an engineering firm who's hired, that engineering firm is going to say this will or won't work, and we're going to decide what works, and therefore that's what the bid is going to contain and consist of. So the county works departments, they put out the bid based on that engineering decisions, and these bids can be voluminous with hundreds of pages in a bid that a contractor goes through. So who's really the most influential person is what you have to ask yourself as a salesperson. Is it an engineer who says this road would function best with Lithtec? Well, if an engineer doesn't even know of Lithtec, how are you going to convince anybody else to go and put it into a structural, into a structural construction job after the fact? It doesn't happen that way. So part of what has to be considered is how do we get to engineers to teach them about our product so that they will go when they are given a job and say, we need to rebuild this road. That engineer goes out there and says, this is the best solution for the road, and it includes Lithtec. And that, to me, is a longer term, a more stable solution to selling our product and it becoming mainstream than us trying to sway politicians who are difficult at best, and to sway other people who have bias all along the way. And a contractor can have bias as much as anybody else. And a contractor even may say, why do you want to use this product? We've worked with it and we don't like it. And all of a sudden you have thrown a question on the table that runs all the way back to the engineer to justify, because the engineer has never laid a road. The contractor is the one who lays the road. So there's a lot of factors that we have to take into in the sales force as to how and who and when are you talking to, and if you are talking to the right person who's in control of the project. Because in the early stages, if a county commissioner says, we really want to try this, let's pick a road, and that's his edict. And so now they go to the engineer and say, we want to have you work on this road and we want you to investigate this Lithtec opportunity. And I think Bob Sherwin can attest to the different relationships that he's had and the different circumstances he's had over the years about who he's had to talk to, who's in charge at the time. So you may be selling to the wrong person on the wrong day. And maybe if it was a different day and the timing was different, that may be the right person, because again, power transfers throughout the process. And that's pretty much what answers a lot of these questions about who's in charge and who do we get to and how do we get to them. And I think that's what really needs to be addressed long-term in sales and marketing.
That's a good point.
I have a question on follow-up that have we in my past experiences in dealing with the federal government, generally the companies that get the contracts have basically written an RFP that they hand over to the government agency that basically makes those companies the ones that get the contract. In other words, the RFP is biased towards their company, and they've realized this, that most of, and let's just substitute the word engineers, are lazy and don't want to have to draft a whole new RFP each and every time. So what they do is they copy, they paste, and build an RFP. So have we done anything? Can we put something together? Because obviously with we have to have a process of how the Lithtec is applied, as well as putting in Lithtec in there. And really all Lithtec is another soil additive that is a new process of putting that additive into the soil. It's new, but yet a lot of the stuff that's in it is the same stuff that they've been using. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I'll take that one. This is Bob Sherwin. We have that procurement document that you're talking about that is customized for the county or municipality or whoever the party is that wants to put it out to bid. And we have it in two different versions. One that would be sole source to specify Lithtec, where they then put out the bid for the contractor that's going to install it. The other one is a very high performance spec that nobody else is going to be able to hit. There's one product that can match our strength, cement, but then they're going to fail in the category of ductility or flexibility. So we have that. And of course, we also have the installation specification that shows them how to install it. So hopefully that answers your question.
And then to that, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, the one thing that's pretty powerful is that if they write that into the deal, then there's nobody else can accomplish it, and that way we can be a single source.
And that's my point in bringing that up, is if we provide that, if we educate the engineers, we educate, and that whether that be a civil engineering company or the engineers at the county, city, whatever, that, hey, here's basically what you need to put into your bid. Then when it goes out, and we've already had discussions on certified paving companies, then they can see that and say, oh yeah, we've got all those pieces of equipment. Oh, we've done those things. And we're kind of setting everybody up for success. That in reality, some people may say that's not fair, but in reality, that's how it works in dealing with the government.
Okay, I've got a question from Dale here. He says, would you recommend meeting with individual county commissioners or all of them at once, as well as public works directors? Now, I'll take this and then Bob, if you want to add, Bob Perry, if you want to add something. So here's the thing. Putting everybody in the room together, it's sometimes hard to gauge who was it that really liked it and who didn't. It's sort of like we were talking before about meeting or speaking at a big conference, and you don't know, hey, who got excited about this? So you want to provide a happy hour or something after, so they can come in and discuss, and the guys that were really motivated end up in a smaller room with you, and you're able to see who they are. The one problem with meeting everybody at one time, it's difficult to gauge. If one of them poisons the well, then you kind of, you don't, they cool off. Whereas if you meet one at a time, they become a cheerleader, then they kind of go and do your work for you. So I'd just say that I would be careful with speaking to big of a powerful crowd. You never even know. I mean, a lot of times these county commissioners don't like each other, or they have completely different agendas. So it's kind of better to talk individually, I believe, so that you could get at least a level of liking it, where they don't hesitate, and it's not the other guy bringing it. So I just think that that's something to take into consideration. Bob, if you want to comment about that question, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I think there are times on that. I think that the more people we can get to learn about Lithtec, the better off we're going to be. And most county commissioners, I don't know if you know this or not, they are really under a thumb for who they can meet with and who they can't meet with. They have to meet in a public forum. There's a lot of laws that govern county commissioners and what they can and can't do. I think that getting at a county commissioners meeting where all three of them are together, then that is by law, the press has to be there, or can be there. They don't have to be there, but they can be there. And I think that if you can present this to the commissioners as a group, then that is also getting that reported in the paper. And then anybody else that was in that meeting at that time, in today's world, it was logged on to the Zoom meeting at that time, or the people that were actually in the meeting, then they are going to have questions later on. They're going to say, hey, we saw this deal that you did, last September with Lithtec, and where are we at on that? Where is that? Have we decided that we're going to use that? What has been the process on that? So not only do you present it to the commissioners, you also present it to the public, and the public, it's amazing. They're all looking for better ways of doing things, and so I don't think that that meeting with the commissioners as a group is a bad thing. I think that's a very positive thing. I think that the meeting that Bob and Ken did with our county commissioners at that time was a good thing. But because things take a long time at the county level, you got this year's budget already taken care of last July. Basically when that budget was kind of approved, it was last July, and what you're building this year is based upon what you approved last July. And then of course COVID can add another year, and then by the time you do that, you're 2 or 3 years down the road. So I think not only should we meet with the county commissioners in a county commissioners meeting, try to get set up to where you can spend a little time with them, but try to do a way to try to follow up, and on that, and then whoever the press people were, if they write something up about what they saw there, then to follow up with them, and so I think that one commissioner, they can be there for 2 years and gone, and or they can be there for 4 and then they're term limited. So they they can be around, but not for a long time, especially when you figure that it takes 2 to 3 years to get a project off budget wise. So I think that the more people we can get involved on this is actually going to be better. Now, as you're pointing out, sometimes you can't get a meeting with the county commissioners. We don't have time for that in our thing, and so in those situations, a lot of times they would prefer to meet, one commissioner meet with them to find out whether or not it's going to be worth all the other commissioners meeting with them. It depends on their workload and those kinds of things. So, but if you can get a meeting with the full Board of County Commissioners, then that would be the better way to do it. Now, but again, a lot of times Board of County Commissioners are really busy and they don't, they are not always agreeable to meet with you in a public forum on that, and they'll want to meet, have one of the commissioners meet and find out what it's about a little bit and find out whether or not they think that it's then that gives you a chance to get one that will carry the water for you in meeting with the other one. So yes or no?
Okay, so we have one last question. We've run in a little bit long here. So just take Leila has a last question here. If you want to go ahead and offer that. Well, I knew she might have left. Okay, can you hear us, Leila? Go ahead. Yeah, I think you're on mute. Not sure I can unmute you.
Hi. Oh, great. Great. Good. You have to. So we're on two computers.
It's
No, it has to.
not going to work. You're probably going to have to get on one. All we
Good.
is,
Here we are. I know. We muted the other.
there you go.
Thank you. So it's Lila, Larry, and Sandra. We're delighted to be here. Bob has been very generous with his time with us. Thank you, Bob. Question arises at keeping it simple. When did Archuleta do their first road installment? So what kind of history do you have on those roads? And are there a grouping of roads that are 5 years or older that show the history? Can we get a list of the roads that might be available? And then our thinking, Bob, we had talked with you about a Zoom meeting, might be to go to the Archuleta roads and then have a meeting from there as we're at the roads and save you many hours of drive time so you can simply explain what we're looking at. So that was actually a series of questions at once, but that would be rising and what about that?
So Leila, this is Mel. We're going to be putting a road in on the 16th of August in Ignacio. And so everybody that can
Are we all good?
come and actually watch
So
filming it, and we'll be making that film available to you. And if we can get Bob down for that'd be great. We're planning on putting him up if he has the time to come down. And as far as the roads go, yes, there are roads that have been out there for as much as 4 years now, and that we can make available to you. Daniel, if you could put that together for him, I'd appreciate that. Well, and what was the other question here?
well, because I know there are various roads that you think have integrity, others, or it's easier to find them than others, that kind of a thing. That would make it simple for us, even if we go as a group or as historically in a context for people that are close to the local area. So that would be great. So you want to do that because over time we're going to talk about the road altogether. Currently we're there. We also would like more information about anything that might have happened in Dolores County. And of course, you've got some roads up in Monticello and other areas that will be closer to our people to the north. And so that would be very beneficial. Thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, the Monticello road is going to be close to you. And then once we do Ignacio, obviously that's a little closer than Archuleta County. But we'll make that list of roads available to you. Okay, Daniel, if we could go ahead.
And we would like to meet with you on the 16th of August when you're working on some roads to the south. That would be good.
Okay, that's great. So
Thank you.
One of the Dolores County ex-commissioners, Ernie Williams, he was a county commissioner in Dolores County. He now works for the transportation department. and they consider him very valuable of what he says. And they trusted what his initial instincts are. He wants more information on this. He asked me a question, I had no idea. So I'm hoping to have him connect with you. Right now, he's in training in Denver for 2 weeks. But one of his questions was how much water? Since we're in a drought, he wants to know how much water per mile is it going to be effective? What kind of equipment is
So,
used?
so
these
it's much less water. I mean, it depends on a lot of things. So we can't just, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bob or Walter, it really, the optimum moisture content is something that's measured on site, but as a rule of thumb, it uses way less water than say cement would use. Am I talking that turn there?
I think that you're correct, because if you're doing a full depth reclamation, you're doing multiple layers of gravel, and you're having to haul water for each level, whereas with the Lithtec, basically you're doing the Lithtec and you're doing that one thing. So I would think that from that standpoint, you're using less water.
Yeah, I can jump in here. It's typically half of soil cement, because we're using half the amount of product, typically 3% versus 6%. And as Bob pointed out, we're usually doing a 6 or 8 inch depth, where soil cement is often 12 to 16 inches. So it could even be less than half. But that was a comment from Griffin Soil Group, who did a job for us in Northern California. They do a lot of soil cement, and their comment was that we use half the water, half the product, and we're on the road twice as fast. And so from their standpoint, those were some of the advantages.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move along here, and I'll abbreviate this at the end because we took a little long. I don't want to waste everybody's time, but at the same time, I think these are really great questions, and it's going to help us achieve. So if I could go on to the next step, there we go. So this is something that we feel is pretty important because there's a bunch of us now, and some of us are where we would work and stuff overlaps. So what I want to do is talk about, you're gonna have to see my ugly mug here because I got to get closer to be able to read here. But we want to talk about, what makes somebody your client, what amount of time do you have to work with them and stuff. And so we came up with this, and this isn't 100% set in stone. I mean, it is once we adapt it, but if any of the BDRs have, viable reason why they feel like the time should be a little different, or, we would definitely take that into consideration. So we're going to go out and contact a public works director or whoever. We're going to start talking with an entity, So we're talking about having a lead. What is a lead? That's having a conversation with somebody in an entity. So you talk to somebody in the county. You might not be talking to the right person, but maybe they're going to, put you in touch of who's the right person. So you're going to have either an in-person conversation or a phone call with that person in the city, state, or county, or a private entity, like Todd has been talking with Pulte Homes, for example. That is considered a lead, and that is going to give you 3 months' time to develop and get to the next step, which we would call a prospect. Okay, that customer becomes a prospect as you work the sales process through and get them to do the testing. So once you've gotten them to test a road, then that becomes your prospect. And you have a year from the time that that testing comes to get a road or a test road built, okay? Then once that client builds a road, that's your customer for life. That's yours, or I mean, when we say for life, that means that they're building roads every year and stuff. There's something happening, you know, every couple of years you're staying on it and stuff. That then nobody's gonna go in and mess with your client in that instance. So then the process is, for now, we've got a meeting with some pretty good, you know, what we think will do a really good job of keeping track of all this. Actually, tomorrow we have a meeting with one, and then we're looking at doing some of our own stuff with Microsoft. We're evaluating what we think will do the best job. And when I say do the best job, it's very simple. My mother needs to be able to do it. It's intuitive. It's not a software that's giving you a headache. You jump on there, and in moments you let everybody know what's happening out there. For the time being, though, you're going to communicate with Daniel. You're going to let him know, I'm having this meeting with such and such entity, which will give you that 3 months. If you don't communicate, we don't know, and none of the other BDRs know, and they might go over and end up working on top of you, and you know how annoying that can be. You know, that there's salespeople jumping all over you. Like, you know, Bob made one of the things that I really heard when Bob was talking to us, you know, well, are a couple of things, and that's that, he felt that the integrity was there. And, you know, I can't stress that enough. You know, everybody here on this call has a profession for life with us, unless they show no integrity. That's one thing what we will not talk. We will help you to the end of the world. We will, but if we have somebody out there saying things that aren't true, misleading people, you know, and it's all about this, you know, getting that sale, you know, we can't work with a person like that. And so in order to keep us all, you know, for now on the straight and narrow, we need to communicate with Daniel and let him keep track of who's out there. We'll figure out a way until we get the software up to share that with everybody, either in a weekly email or something that basically, and of course we're going to know, I'm going to cut the part short that we were going to do a debriefing about what we had done, because we've gone a little bit long, and we're guests here, and you know, we told them we'd probably be around an hour, so we'll cut it short. I'll just tell you what my week has been like, and then you just know in a couple of weeks we'll get back, and I really want to do that debriefing part of this, so we'll also be telling each other where we're working and how and what's working for us and all like that. So is there any questions on that, Flo?
I would think that number 2 should probably be up to 2 years, because I don't think that you're going to be able to get a county, depending on when you contact them, of course, but I would say 1 to 2 years on number 2, because you're not going to get a county through to geotechnical testing within 1 year.
Okay. So you're saying that their budget might be gone before the test is even comes back or whatever. Yeah. Okay. I'm very cool with that, and you know better than anyone. So we'll change that. I'll just make an executive decision here, and we'll change that to 2.
Change it to qualified leads. Leads is very, it's got to be somebody within the realm.
Yeah, we maybe, when we talked about that, we just didn't change this. We're talking about a qualified lead, you know.
Right.
on that number one. You can't go talk to the janitor at the Humane Society for the county and have that be a lead. So yeah, it needs to be a qualified person in the county. We'll fix that too.
Agreed.
Okay, anybody have any questions on that? I don't see any, so let's move to the next slide there, Daniel. Okay. So we're not going to ask each of you to tell us what you've done, but I'm going to tell you what I've done. And you know, this is, you know, it's exciting. You know, it's like we looked last week at, or a couple of weeks ago, we looked at what these counties are doing. They're going from 1 mile to 14 miles, you know, doing 14 times, and saw how, you know, within a relatively short time doing this, you could be, you know, making 6 figures. And that's all well and good, but it's like kind of like a, you know, a fist fight. It's all fun and games until you get hit in the mouth. And so my week was kind of getting hit in the mouth. There were successes and failures. I had a meeting that started, I had a meeting last Friday with the city of Flagstaff. And we were very exciting with that possibility because they were, you know, very interested in it. They have the problem with their cinders. We showed that we could really fix all that for them. And they were worried about a freeze thaw study, and they couldn't come up with the money to get that done there at Northern Arizona University. But we were able to provide one from an entity that did it out in Michigan, which, you know, talk about freeze thaw. And the study was really, really good. And that was really the last thing that was, you know, kind of holding them up. So getting back in front of them was really a priority for me. And so they agreed to a meeting, and lo and behold, God sent the monsoons, and they had 3 feet of mud coming down their streets, and everybody had to get pulled off. And so after, you know, driving about 300 and something miles and having Todd come up and from Phoenix and meet me there, because I want to hand that off a little bit. You know, he can get to a meeting in a day where me, it's got to be, you know, I've got to overnight and whatnot. So as a result, they canceled the meeting. I'm hopeful, I've got it back out there, that on the way back home here, I'm going to be able to meet with them and figure it out. So you're going to have those things. You think, wow, this is great. And then you drive 300 miles and it's a no-go. And we should be realistic about those things. So I said, well, that's great. We'll move on. And so we met with the people that we're working with down in Prescott. We just moved that up. And so we were able to get the information in front of the vice mayor of Chino Valley. And we're working to, so those 3 communities there, Chino Valley, Prescott Valley, and Prescott. We have somebody that's very connected and is, you know, working. When this is over, we're going to get back with him, and we're going to work out our strategy for those 3 communities. So that was a plus. I didn't even know that there was going to be a chance to get in front of her, which happened, and so we were good about that. So 1 negative, 1 plus. But you know, maybe my other big deal was to meet with the Pimas down here, the Pima tribe. I had a meeting set up with the person that deals with and takes care of all their real estate holdings, which is really incredible amount. And the morning of our meeting, I got a text saying, I'm so sorry, something's come up, and you know, please, the next time you come down, please let me know. I'm really sorry. And so, you know, there's a week, guys, that I mean, obviously I was working on other things at the same time and whatnot, but that's life. it's getting, I think that it's getting that first road sold, that test road that's gonna make it. And that's gonna be most of your effort, because I think as Bob sort of said, you know, once he had that test, once he saw the performance, he was advocating for more and more, you know, roads. So that first investment in time is where we're gonna be, you know, spending all our effort. And then I really think it gets easy after that. So, so anyhow, I'm going to conclude with that. We're not going to talk about your weeks, but I'm hoping that you did. You were able to start that process that we talked about last time of getting 3 meetings a month. And if you didn't, I hope that you can, you know, going forward, and we'll get back together in about 2 weeks, and we'll do a little debriefing of what everybody's doing, and hopefully have some other things and maybe some news about software to keep track of this. So unless anybody has a pressing question, I'll call it for today. Whoops. Looks like we're good to go. So thanks a lot. Thanks.